Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Lunch and Learn webinar series. Today's topic is Sponsorship 101, and it's brought to you today with the support of our sponsor, the University of Fredericton. My name is Tanya Seneschal, and I'm the event manager at the Fredericton Chamber of Commerce. Our presenter today is Christina Nickel of the Fredericton Playhouse. Christina Nickel is the Development Director at the Fredericton Playhouse, where she is responsible for all sponsorship, fundraising, and management of the grant and funding portfolio for the organization. Christina has worked in the nonprofit sector for most of her career, with 15 years, with 7 of those years being directly related to the area of fund development. She was also the co-owner of her own event planning and decor company for 4.5 years, where she developed her skills for relationship building and community partnerships. Christina is a graduate at the University of New Brunswick and is an active member of the business community in Fredericton. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Christina.
Hey everyone, how you doing? So here we go. So I will admit this is the first time I've ever done a webinar like this. So, bear with me. There might be a few little glitches here and there, but I think it's all good. So I just see that a bunch of you are jumping on here now. So we're just going to jump the slides ahead here. So here we are. So, as Tanya said, I'm the development director at the Playhouse, and I've been in that position for a little over 3 years now. And I look after all of the corporate sponsorship, fundraising, and grant portfolio for the organization. So kind of those 3 main areas keeps me busy. So I just thought today I would, like I say, we would focus on Sponsorship 101. I kind of feel like that's a general topic that a lot of not-for-profits maybe don't always have. If you're not really using sponsorships a lot in your organization, then sometimes it's a bit overwhelming to kind of know where to start and to kind of figure out some of the ins and outs as far as CRA regulations and all that kind of fun stuff, which are important to understand. So before we kind of get going, I would like to know if you can kind of type in your chat box. You should see it right there on your screen. Just drop your name in there. Let me know what organization you're with. I'd just like to kind of have a quick roll call and see who's here, and so we kind of know who we're talking to. Hey, Jerry. Hey, Christina. Okay, so we have diabetes, and we have Fredericton Convention Center, Fredericton Regional Museum in York Sunbury Historical Society. Anybody else out there? I see there's 12 of you on here, so there's got to be some people out there. Harvest Jazz and Blues, excellent. Is that it for now? Everybody else is being shy? All right, well, we'll get going. All right, so I want to ask you another question. Again, you can just drop it in the box. And guys, I want to try to make this, it's a webinar, I understand. You're just kind of sitting there listening to me. You can't see me. But, we want to try to make it as engaging and interactive as possible. So, don't be shy and type. If you have questions anytime throughout the presentation, just drop them in there, and either myself or Tanya will see it, and we'll make sure that we do our best to answer it. So the next question I want to ask you is, so who already is working with sponsorship and community partnerships to support your mission? Maybe just let me know, if this is something you do already or you're familiar with, or if you're kind of brand new starting out and, this is kind of a new thing for you. And don't be shy. Like I say, if you're just, there's a good variety of us on the call today that have a wide range of experience. So some of us may already are likely already using sponsorship, or I know we are, and some of you aren't using it at all, and that's totally fine. So that's what we're kind of here to help with, and we all have some expertise I'm sure we can share. All right, so I'm seeing, I've seen a couple people are saying that, you're brand new to the role, that you are using some sponsorships at CHIMO, but you're brand new to the role. FCC, it's brand new to you. That's okay. Oh, I can't see your comment here. Okay, perfect. So we've got, yeah, some of you are using it, some of you aren't, so that's great. All right, so we're just going to jump right into it. And like I say, I kind of wanted to start with, kind of at the beginning with the basics, because I just wanted to make sure that we all were on the same page and we all understood what we're talking about when we're talking about sponsorships. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is about sponsorship versus donation. And when I'm talking to a lot of different other not-for-profits or colleagues in the community and that aren't maybe as far along in the sponsorship world maybe as I am at the Playhouse, sometimes there is a bit of a misunderstanding about what the difference between sponsorship versus donation is. So, and that's really important to understand because it does make a big difference when you are talking to people in the community as far as approaching them to be a sponsor with your organization, and it makes a huge difference as far as receiving guidelines and all those types of things. So, so the first thing, like I say, I want to talk about, so it's sponsorship. A sponsorship occurs when a business makes a donation towards the cost of a charity's activity or event, and in return, the charity advertises or promotes the business brand, products, or services. That is the definition of sponsorship on the CRA website. So again, what that is meaning is that company A comes to you and they give you cash in exchange for a marketing or promotion value, and this would be considered at fair market value for what your services, the marketing value that you're giving them. If this were a straight donation, then company B is coming to you and they are giving you a cash gift to your charity or to your organization, and it is a free contribution, meaning that they are not getting anything significant in return from your organization. And a lot of times, like I say, people get confused on this, but it is very important to understand because there are very different rules surrounding this when you're looking at Canada Revenue Agency guidelines. So I dropped the website in there, and if you haven't already or you aren't already familiar with that site, as far as not-for-profits, you should check it out because it does explain very clearly what all of the receiving guidelines are, what the difference is between sponsorship and donation. So like I say, just remember these two things. Sponsorship, they give you cash, you're giving them something in return. A donation, they're giving you cash, you're not really giving them anything in return other than a thank you. There's no significant value being traded back and forth. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. All right, so I just wanted to give you kind of a little example, like kind of talk through an example of this in the context of an event. So we're playing a golf tournament. I know a lot of us do that kind of thing, or a lot of organizations do. So you're playing a golf tournament. And I want you to kind of notice the difference between the two when we kind of put it into practice. So you have company ABC who gives you a $2,000 for your annual golf tournament. Their company logo has been printed on all of the event signage and all the scorecards. They are recognized on your organization's website. They've provided some swag that will be handed out at the event. They're going to be thanked publicly at the wrap-up dinner at the event, all these types of things. So their logo is all over the event. And also as part of their support, they're receiving a free team registration to participate in the tournament. So this is company, your first example. And then you have company 123, which gives you $1,000 towards your annual golf tournament. They do tell you that it's, they're contributing to that event, but they don't want anything in return. They will be thanked at the event by the MC. They may have their name printed in if there's a program or a handout, but they do not have their logo or their signage on anything, none of the event signage, not on the website or any of the branding materials. Their logo is not on anything. So, it's not very obvious that that company has any association with the event. So this happens from time to time when you're talking event sponsorship. Sometimes companies will come to you and they don't want anything in return, and that is great. And that's great when we have companies that want to do that. And so we need to make sure that we respect that, and that from a taxing perspective and a receiving perspective, this is where it makes a big difference. So the first example, of company ABC, they would not be able to receive any sort of a tax benefit or tax receipt for that contribution because they are getting something in return and you are giving them fair market value in marketing for their contribution. Company 123 would be eligible to receive a tax receipt from your organization because they gave you a gift and there was such minimal exchange between the two as far as recognition that they would be eligible for a tax receipt. So I just wanted to make sure before we get too far into it that everybody understands that difference. Okay? All right. All right, does anybody have any questions? You can say type them in there, and if I don't see them, then type again. My chat box is very small, so I can only see like 1 or 2 little comments at a time. All right, so the other thing that I wanted to kind of talk about, kind of some of the basics of sponsorship, is we talked about this a little bit, is about receipting. So I don't want to get too far into receipting because, like I said, this in itself is a whole other conversation. And that's why, you know, I really stress that it is important, whoever is looking after the bookkeeping for your organization and the receipting and all those types of things, you really need to take some time and go to the CRA website and read through the guidelines and the regulations. And the reason that this is so important, because especially if you are a registered charity or not-for-profit, you know, if you are not receipting properly, that is a big deal. You know, if you were to get caught or flagged by CRA, they can actually take your charity number away from you or your charitable status, and you do not want that to happen. So, you know, you really need to take this seriously. You need to understand the difference between when you issue a tax receipt and when you do not. So, again, here's just a little visual about, you know, you have a donation. It is a gift from the heart. It is a gift of cash or whatever it might be. Yes, you can issue a donation or a donation receipt or tax receipt for that. If it is a sponsorship and it is a mutually beneficial partnership, is how I like to look at them. So it's kind of a win-win for both of you. You are getting some cash from them, but they are getting some marketing and promotion from you. They are not eligible for the tax receipt. So again, like I say, I encourage you to kind of take some time to make sure that you understand those rules and regulations. All right, so we're going to move into kind of the actual, get into the kind of nuts and bolts a little bit about how I approach sponsorship and what some of the best practices are and some of the basic steps. So, you know, at this point, does anybody have any other questions about, you know, what we kind of chatted about? You understand, you're clear on the difference between the two, right? All right, nobody say anything. I think that's good. All right, so now we want to, you know, we know the basics, we understand the difference between sponsorship and donation. Now we really are ready to go and get those sponsors. So now what do we do? So the first thing that we kind of need to do, you know, you've made the decision, you're going to move forward, you're going to get sponsorship, and you're all excited, and you're ready to go. The first thing you need to do is stop and put on the brakes. And you're probably thinking, okay, what is she talking about? So, you know, sometimes we get a little excited and we just kind of go out and start asking whoever we can ask for sponsorships. And, you know, sometimes that works out and sometimes that doesn't. But, you know, to really make, I guess, have the best results and to be as efficient as possible when you are making your sponsorship ask, there's a few things that you kind of need to go through first with your organization before you're ready to really go out and start making those asks. So kind of the first thing you need to do is you really need to have a clear understanding of what your organization's goals are surrounding sponsorship. You know, are you looking to just have sponsors to support, you know, specific events throughout the year, or are you looking to have sponsorships that are going to support your organization as a whole, that will contribute to your general operating budgets and funds throughout the entire year? You know, so you really need to have this conversation. You need to understand what your goals are. And I mean, sometimes those goals may be, both of those goals may, you know, intersect. So you could be soliciting sponsors that are going to support your organization or things operationally, but you could also have sponsors that you're going after just for specific events, kind of on an as-needed basis. So you need to think about that and you need to develop a plan. And again, this is going to have budget implications for you as well. So, like, you know, when you're doing your annual budgets, if you look at this and say, okay, well, we've you know, put $50,000 in sponsorship revenue in our budget, that's something, you know, you kind of need to be conscious of, that you're like, okay, well, I have this budgetary goal to meet, so I need to make sure that I'm aware of that, and the expectation is that I'm going to bring in that level of sponsorship over the course of the year. The next thing you need to do is you need to sit down and you need to make a list of the businesses that are good potential sponsors for you. So, you know, you can start making this list from anywhere. You know, start with the Chamber of Commerce. The business directory is fantastic. Have a look down through there. Think about organizations and other companies that you already have relationships with, like their suppliers that you purchase from, or those types of things. So make a list of who are good potential sponsors for you. And I stress the word potential. So, you know, just because you put them on a list does not necessarily mean that they're going to be a good fit for you. Then step 3, you need to research and identify who your prospects are and make sure that your values align. And what I mean by this is that, you know, so you might have put, you know, Joe's Plumbing on your list as a potential sponsor, but then when you really start doing the research, you know, you may find that, you know, that maybe they're a really, really small business. Maybe they don't have the capacity to do those types of things. Or say you had put, we'll use Scotiabank for example. Say you put Scotiabank on your list of a potential sponsor. You're thinking, oh, they're a bank, they give out money to everybody. But no, when you really start doing the research into a lot of the larger companies, they have very clearly defined, you know, guidelines as to where their donations and their support in the community goes. So, you know, if you are like if you know, I'm an arts organization, I'm not going to go after Scotiabank if they state very clearly on their website. Most of the time you can find this on their website, by the way. If they state very clearly on their website that their target areas of support in the community are education and medicine, then it's going to be a complete waste of time for me to go even to approach them, because it's not that they don't necessarily value what I'm doing, or, you know, don't think that what I'm doing is great. It's just I'm in the arts sector, so that is not one of their areas of focus. So they're not going to, you know, sponsor me or give us any sort of funding, right? So you really need to do this. So once you've kind of gone through your potential list and researched who and identified who your prospects are, then that's going to give you some direction of who you should be going after and who's going to best align, their values will best align with your organization, because that's important too. You need to make sure that all of that, like that their values and your values align for it to be a really good fit. And because you also want to be strategic and you want to think long term. You're trying to build this relationship and foster this partnership for a long term continual giving. So if it's not a good match, if those values don't align, then that often doesn't happen. It usually turns into kind of like a one-time gift, but it doesn't usually continue, right? So you got to really think long term. You got to think about those relationships. So then once you kind of identify who you're going to go after, then you need to prepare to make the ask. You know, and if you don't already have one, you know, I really recommend that you make a sponsorship package that clearly outlines the levels of support that you're looking for. So when I'm going out and soliciting sponsorships, I mean, I have several different packages that I use, right? So if I'm doing it on an event-by-event basis, I will put together a sponsorship package specific to that event. So for example, our Backstage Bash, that's kind of like, it was like a gala type event. It happened once a year. I had, you know, certain levels that I had developed for that particular event. Those lined up with what my goals were in our budget, and you know, they were reasonable. The pricing that I had put in there was reasonable for that event. But then I also have a package that is my general sponsorship package, is my corporate sponsorship package for when I'm soliciting sponsors for our Spotlight season, and that is, you know, the entire year of performances that the Playhouse presents. So that is much different than what it looks like when I'm doing it on an event-by-event basis. Granted, some of the benefits that will be listed in those packages look very similar, but I've tailored it to each specific audience that I'm going to be giving it to. We'll talk a little bit more kind of about, you know, I'll show you what my sponsorship package looks like, or the basics of it. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the next couple slides. yeah, and the other reason I guess that it's important, sorry, I kind of forgot to mention this. The other reason it's important to have that sponsorship package is because it really clearly outlines what you're looking for. So when you approach that potential sponsor and you make the ask, you just look, it looks more professional, it's more polished, and you just have a more clearly defined outline of what it is you're looking for from them. And it just helps that conversation go a little more smoothly. Step 5 that I think is really important is so that then once you get all this ready, you need to then reach out to them. You need to reach out to them to set up a meeting or pay them a visit. And the biggest thing is if you don't ask, you're not going to get anything. So when I say reach out to them, I mean you kind of have to use your discretion and think about what's going to be the best approach. If this is somebody that you currently have an existing relationship with, then it's probably acceptable to just pick up the phone and call and say, hey, how you doing? I wonder if you have a few minutes for me to come in and talk to you about this. Or stop in and see them. Like I say, that's, you're going to approach it differently depending on what type of relationship you currently have with them. If this is, again, we'll use Scotiabank as an example, but you have never spoke to them about your organization before, probably sending them an email, if there is a contact name, is the best approach, or maybe give them a phone call. But I will tell you, a lot of the times with the larger companies, a lot of the times now you can't even talk to a person. It is all done online. It's all done through their website, and often they just have a submission process that you have to go through. Now, sometimes, like I say, if you can get a hold of a contact, that's fantastic, and I encourage you to use that contact. But you make sure you're using it in the appropriate way. So like I say, remember, they're busy. They're getting asked and requests all the time. So the last thing you want to do is annoy them. so maybe in that situation, just send them a little email, introduce yourself, and then if you can engage in that conversation with them, ask them a couple questions about your project and make sure that what you're going to submit and propose, they will tell you pretty quickly if it aligns with what they want to support, because there is no point in wasting your time going through all those steps and filling out those long web forms with all those big corporate companies, and it's not going to go anywhere because it wasn't really what they're looking for. So like I say, if you can get a contact, fantastic. If not, just do your research on those types of situations and fill out the web forms as much detail as you can possibly get in them. All right. So I have another couple other questions for you. So I want to know, how are you currently working with sponsors? Are you using them for events, or are you using them for, overall operations or support of your organization? And I also was kind of curious about, how successful are you at that? Are you having really good luck with, soliciting new sponsors and that kind of thing? So yeah, just let me know where everybody's at. Okay, so we have some are using them for fundraisers, and then we have funders who are specific to things within the organization. So that's a good point too. So there's a difference that we would need to understand too between funders and sponsors. All very valuable and important, and we want to keep them all happy. We need them all. But that is a whole other conversation. So when we're talking funding or funders, that usually falls more into the grant world, right? So, that, like I say, that's a whole other webinar, which maybe we'll have to do someday. So yeah, so when we're talking sponsorship and those types of things, that's typically what you're going to see, the types of business, that's what you're going to see the support on your events, maybe sometimes with your organization. And then when you get funding, whether it be like through the province of New Brunswick or the government of Canada or whoever that might be, that comes through more of the grant stream. Okay, all right, moving on. So I just wanted to talk through kind of some of the best practices, and I'm sure you guys know a lot of this stuff, so I don't mean to be kind of, repeating things or kind of assuming you don't know this, but at the same time, I also didn't necessarily know who we were going to be, so I wanted to make sure that we were kind of covering a lot of the ground, the basics. I'm going to go over some of the ground rules. So like we talked about before, it's really important that you have a plan. You have a plan of attack, and whatever you do, just don't wing it. Now, I mean, sometimes we all wing it, let's be honest. We all do that. And sometimes that works out just fine. But again, you kind of have to be, like I was saying before, you kind of want to be a little bit strategic about it, and you want to be thinking long term. And you want to be going after those sponsors that you know are going to be the best fit for your organization and that you can build long-term renewable relationships with. That is the key. You're always going to have some turnover from year to year. There's going to be some sponsors that they're only going to come on once, or 1 year, and then they'll drop off for whatever reason. But like for me, for example, the Playhouse, like I have had some sponsors that have been supporting our Spotlight series for the last 15 years, and they continue to do that annually. But it's because we put that effort in and we put that work in to continue to foster and steward those relationships. So that's really important. Like we said before, you need to do your homework. You need to know who you're going to talk to, and you need to understand their business. So it's not just about getting a name and setting up a meeting. Before you walk into that meeting, you need to have put some time and effort into understanding who they are and who they are. I mean, at least make sure you know their name, because sometimes that happens. You go to a meeting and you're like, I don't have a clue who I'm actually meeting with. But you also really need to understand their business. And I kind of just mean in a general sense. You need to know what they do. You need to know kind of, like I say, what their goals are in the community and how a general idea of how their business operates, so that you don't walk in there and look like you are completely, like, that you put no preparation into this, this meeting kind of thing. And it's pretty obvious when you walk into a meeting, like say, they can pick up on that pretty quickly if you have not made any effort or taken any time to try to get to know who they are and to understand their business, right? Don't be afraid to call, email to stop in and see them. We kind of talked about this a little bit in the first one. So, like I said, continue to build on those existing relationships. Those are always the easiest places to start. But, it is kind of scary to go out and ask someone for money. I mean, nobody wants to be, that fear of rejection, everybody has that. Nobody wants to hear a no, but that's going to happen from time to time. But you need to understand, don't take it personally. This is just business. It's not that they, I can't think of anybody I've ever gone and asked that I've ever had anybody be upset or, rude to me when I've asked. They just have, will say for whatever reason they can't support us at that time, and that is completely fine. But that doesn't mean you don't keep them on your list. Those are people that you want to revisit every year or a couple years when you're going, when you are reaching out for new sponsors again. Where are we? So you also want to make sure that you are prepared and you know what you're asking for. We sort of talked about that a little bit. Be confident and smile. Now I know, like I just kind of said, it is challenging at times to walk into these meetings, and I will be honest, this is not something I love doing. It's not my favorite thing to do, and I'm not maybe as confident with it sometimes as I should be. But just try to really, if you need to take a little bit of time before you go into this meeting, kind of psych yourself up, then do that, and be confident and smile and go into that meeting. The way I always kind of look at it is, when you're going into this meeting, nobody knows your organization better than you do. You are going to be passionate and excited about your organization and about your cause, and just go with that and kind of let that kind of shine through. But I know sometimes it can be a little bit challenging because the nerves and the fear at times when you're going into these meetings kind of overshadows that a little bit. But really be confident and smile. And just really go in there and be a champion for your organization, and then it'll all fall into place from there, and whatever's going to happen with that organization is going to work out, right? So think about, was it a good fit? If you go into that meeting and you thought, okay, after you leave, of course you always think of 100 other things you could have said or done, or how you could have approached it differently. But say you go in and you pitch a sponsorship opportunity to someone, and then it doesn't work out. That's great. Use that as kind of a learning opportunity and think to yourself, think, okay, well, was that a good fit? Maybe why wasn't that a good fit? And then you can kind of start identifying why, or kind of start fine-tuning, I guess, some of the asks that you're going to go after, right? So it's good every once in a while to get a no, because it really makes you stop and rethink and refocus kind of what you're doing. The other thing that I kind of want to mention is sell your cause without selling. So like I said, we are the best champions and supporters of our organization. Well, or at least we should be, right? And sometimes we get so excited when we are talking about all the awesome things that we're doing and the fantastic work that we're doing in the community and how much we love our organization and and so on and so on. You know what I mean? That we just get so wound up in it that it can come across as that you're really pushing very hard and that you're really selling. And so you really want to be careful about doing that. I mean, obviously you are selling. That is what you are doing. Even though we're not for profit, when we're talking sponsorships and that type of thing, you are there, you are selling. The only difference is you are not selling a product, you are selling a cause. So you need to sell, but you need to do it without looking like, some door-to-door salesman. And, just be conscious of that, because sometimes, like I say, we get so excited that we're like, kind of talking over them, and that we're so excited to try to get that money in our pocket that it can come across the wrong way. So just be conscious of that. After you've had the meeting, you want to follow up and you want to go for the no. People are busy. They do not read their emails. They do not answer their voice messages. They don't do any of that kind of stuff. And, as frustrating as it might be for you, don't leave the ball in their court to always expect them to come back and say to you yes or no. If you haven't heard from them for, a week or two after your meeting, then there is absolutely nothing wrong with you sending them a quick email or giving them a call and kind of saying, hey, how you doing? I just wanted to follow up and, see if you'd had an opportunity to review the information that we talked about, those types of things. Just a simple little follow-up might be all they need to kind of remind them, because you know what, 9 times out of 10, they probably haven't even read the information yet. And they forget. So definitely follow up. And you might follow up the first time with like, oh no, I didn't read that. So then they're going to go back and read it. I'll look at that today. And then it will be another week or two before you have any more contact with them. And chances are you're going to have to follow up with them again. Like I say, it is kind of a little bit frustrating on our side of things, but that's just the way it works because people are just so busy. So don't be afraid to do that and do those follow-ups. Give them a call, send them an email, those types of things. I don't recommend just stopping in for the follow-up. People don't tend to like that because they're busy. You got to be conscious of that too and respect their time. So do the follow-up and go for the no. Until they have said, no, we are not interested, it is still in play. So you need to, be aware of that and you need to stay on top of that. All right, next thing. All right, so the other thing I kind of wanted to chat a little bit about, because I also run into this when I'm talking to different people, different not-for-profits and colleagues in the community, is sometimes people get a little bit confused on the types of sponsorship. And the two main types that I'm referring to would be cash sponsorships versus in-kind sponsorships. So I've kind of, for me or in my organization, I'm sure it's fairly similar for some of you, these are kind of the three combinations of sponsorship that we typically deal with. Straight cash, which are the best kind. Everybody wants those, right? They're simple, it's clean, it's easy, great. Go for the cash when you can. We also have quite a number, I'd say probably 50% of the sponsorships that I have are in-kind sponsorships. So what that is just, those are with companies that we have existing relationships with. Those are people that are some of our current suppliers that offer services that are things that we would use, such as, graphic design or, web publication, all those types of things, or printing services, all that type of thing. So they're services that we use in our organization. So we have in-kind. So that is just an exchange of they are giving me X amount of dollars of services, providing me X amount of dollars of services. I still count that in my records, and it's counted on our books as as that value. So if it's $2,000 credit in print services with whoever, then that's how we count that on our book, and that's on our book in the bookkeeping. Sorry, that's a whole other world. I really couldn't explain it to you any further than that. That would be the accounting department that would go with that. So if you have questions like that, talk to whoever does all the accounting within your organization, and if you have questions, and they can help you with that. Then the third kind of combination that we have sometimes is that we would have kind of a cash and an in-kind. So say it's a $5,000 sponsorship, I might have $2,000 of that is cash, $3,000 of that is in-kind services. So same thing, you treat those in-kind services at their fair market value. So, you know, sometimes we do a combination of things like that, and then you would, you know, you give them their sponsorship or marketing value in exchange for the full value of $5,000. So both, you know, like I say, both kinds of these sponsorships are fantastic. But I do want to say one thing with regards to in-kind sponsorships. Sometimes you need to be careful about these because in-kind sponsorships, while they help your bottom line, they act as cash, you know, in a way within your organization. You want to be careful about the types of in-kind sponsorships that you're getting. So if you are, you know, like I guess you know, if you are, you have a company comes to you and says they offer snow plowing services, they will give you 1 year of snow plowing services in exchange for whatever, a sponsorship on this event. Okay, that's all well and good, but your place of business doesn't have a parking lot that needs to be plowed. There is absolutely no point in you taking that sponsorship because it is no value to you. You know, or if you have a company come to you and say, you know, I am going to give you $5,000 worth of printing services, but you might only spend $1,000 a year on printing. You're wasting, there's $4,000 sitting there that serves no purpose to your organization. So sometimes organizations, I see this, they get really excited about in-kind sponsorships and they have this big long list of all these people that are giving them all this stuff. But when they actually sit down and look at it, they're maybe able to take advantage of about half of them. So treat in-kind sponsorships just like they're a cash sponsorship and only go after and, you know, accept ones that are a benefit to you, that are going to impact your bottom line and that you can make use of for your organization. Because if you're not spending, you know, if that's money that that's going to go out the door anyway, whether it be for whatever service it might be, if you can get some sort of an in-kind sponsorship to offset that, then that's fantastic, and you want to do that, and it's really helpful. But just be conscious of that. All right. I don't see any other questions, so I'm just going to assume that everybody's good at this point. All right. So the next thing that we'll kind of get into a little bit is about how to build your sponsorship package. So, did I go ahead a slide? Just 1 second here. Yeah, I did. Just a second. I got to go back up. What am I on? Here we are. Clicked it twice. Okay, so sponsorship package. So some of the important, just the basic elements of a sponsorship package that you kind of want to include are what the investment amount is. So you can kind of see this is just a one-page example of one of my packages that I use for my Backstage Bash. You can actually, all of my sponsorship packages are actually on our website. So you're free to go and look at them anytime, or if you ever want me to send you the full package so you can look at it, I have no problem doing that. Just drop me an email and I'd be happy to send it on to you so you can kind of see what we do. So like I say, so the important elements, you want it to look professional. It needs to, you know, look like you put some effort into it and that it's laid out professionally and it's easy to read and those types of things. You want to make sure you have the investment amount. And then you want to kind of outline what you have to offer them. So, you know, some of the typical things, I've had people say to me, oh, well, we don't have anything to give them. I don't know, well, what can we give them in return? Chances are we all have things that we can offer them in exchange, like that marketing value. You just kind of need to sit down and put a little bit of thought into it, right? So, you know, but for what maybe, say, my organization, it's going to look a lot different maybe than what, say, diabetes or Chimo might look like, right? I have that advantage of being able to use, you know, tickets and those types of things, which is great. But we all have things like, you know, when you're doing an event, of course, event signage, logos can go on event signage. You have websites, you have, geez, I'm drawing a blank, you know, all those types of things. So you just really need to stop and think about what things of value that your organization has or resources that you can then help to kind of use to help promote your sponsors, right? But above all, regardless of how nice your sponsorship package looks and your price points are on, or where they should be and all that kind of stuff, above all, the most important thing is it really is all about the relationship and whether or not it is a good fit. Excuse me. And sometimes we forget that, and we really need to. That is, I think, if you take anything away from this today, I really can't stress the importance of the relationship and about building those partnerships and that trust with sponsors so that they want to continue to support your organization. All right. So then kind of just some of the basics kind of about how to build your package. So okay, so we'll use a gala, for example. So you're planning a gala and you want to solicit event sponsors. So think about how much of sponsorship dollars you want to bring in on this particular event. Look at your event budget. This is, I mean, at least when I do my budgets for my events and sponsorship, like I put the amount right in there of what I'm hoping they're planning to get brought in for sponsorship because it's going to impact, the budget for the rest of the event. So that's important. If you need to have that conversation with your executive director or whoever in your organization, then that's something that you need to do because it does make a big difference. And it's nice because it gives you some direction and kind of a target of what you're trying to hit, right? Like we kind of chatted about before, you have to think about what value does your organization have to offer. So logo placement on signage, logo on your website, promotion through social media, speaking opportunities at events, photo ops, e-blasts, newsletter distribution, event tickets, and all those kinds of things. And everybody's going to look different, but we do have probably some common things that we can use as far as value for our sponsors, but those are the types of things you want to think about. I do want to just kind of point out, if you're doing a gala or something that is ticketed, just be conscious, as some people think, oh, it's so easy, I'll just give them X amount of free tickets. But you really want to be careful when you're talking tickets, whether it be for a performance or an event or whatever it is, that you don't give away too many tickets. We are all not-for-profits and we all are trying to make some money, right? So pretty quickly, it can add up a lot quicker than you think. If you're giving out, you only have 200 tickets to sell and you've got 50 of those tickets are sponsorship tickets, that adds up quickly. That is money that is money right off your bottom line because you can't sell those tickets, right? Even though, yes, you gave them to your sponsors as a benefit for their support, but you just want to be conscious of that. So kind of have an idea, okay, like, look, we can afford to give away, X number of comp tickets on whatever event or performance it might be. And sometimes complimentary tickets get out of hand because often what will happen too is they don't get used. So it's really frustrating when you know that you have like half of your complimentary tickets that you gave out to sponsors didn't end up getting used, and that was, those are tickets that you could have sold, and that's money, right? That's cash that just walked out the door, right? So just kind of keep that in mind. So you need to decide on price points for your sponsorships. And, I've had a lot of people ask me this before too, like, well, how do I decide on my price points? And honestly, there is no, maybe there is, I don't know some magic formula for this, right? It's just, you kind of just have to, I guess, kind of think, okay, what is reasonable? If you were being asked to sponsor something, what seems reasonable for the type of event that you're putting on, the types of benefits that you can offer them in exchange? Is this the very first time you're doing this event? You know what, if it's the very first time, then don't set your price too crazy, like don't make it too crazy. It needs to be accessible. You also need to think about, well, who are the people that we're going to be potentially approaching? If you know that most of the organizations that you're going to be approaching are, really small to medium-sized businesses, they just don't have it in their budgets to be doing $5,000 and $10,000 sponsorships all the time. They just don't. So you need to just kind of be aware of that. And that's why we have those different levels in. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with, setting your levels, your different sponsorship levels, to a price that is reflective of, the organization, where you are in the life of the event, all those types of things, your organization's reputation in the community. So you just kind of have to just kind of give that a little bit of thought and figure out kind of what, where it should fit. And, the first year or so, it might be a little bit of trial and error. And this is not to say, like, I might go to somebody with a sponsorship package, and I might have a $5,000, a $2,500, and a $1,500 level. And you know what? I start talking to them, and you know, it comes out that they really they could afford $1,000. You know what? That's not going to say that I'm not going to take their $1,000, because I will. But what I will do is I will kind of say, okay, well, look, here's what I'll do. For the $1,000 level sponsorship, I'll offer you these benefits. And I don't typically, you know, promise them anything right there on the spot. I'll say, you know, okay, great. I'll go back and kind of have a look at this, and I'll kind of see what I can offer you. And I will get back in touch with them with kind of a customized package for them. It might look very similar to what my $1,500 package was, but it might have less tickets, or it might have a smaller size ad in our season guide, or those types of things, right? So sometimes, like I say, you have that sponsorship as a guide, but once you start talking to them and you really start kind of getting into it, you might start seeing that some of them are going to fit into different areas other than what you've already kind of specified, and that's great. That's okay. Just kind of be prepared and willing to kind of do that with them. And people appreciate that when you do that, right? Because, like I say, not everybody is going to have the capacity to be able to support you at the levels that you think it will be. But at the same time, it's important that you don't undervalue yourself either, right? So it's kind of a, you know, it's a fine line there. But after you do it for a while, you'll kind of get used to what you should be asking and those types of things. And you'll kind of see what the threshold is for your sponsors, especially when you get into a situation of renewing sponsorships. You know, like, you know, I've kind of say we have a performance sponsorship. I mean, you know, sure, it increases every once in a while, every few years, but I also am, you know, pretty conscious of where that level is and what that amount is on an individual performance. And I kind of feel like, you know, we know if we're kind of at the ceiling of what our sponsors are going to accept and what they're going to take, right? So, you know, it doesn't do me any benefit to just put it up $500 every year just for the sake of putting it up. Because if I know they're never going to pay above, you know, whatever it is, then, you know, there's no value in that. And they tend to not like that. And it kind of upsets them a little bit when you kind of keep trying to push it, right? They don't like feeling like they're being nickel and dimed. Just want to make sure that I didn't miss anything. Right. Once you've kind of decided on your, like I say, on your price point and all that kind of stuff, then you need to kind of pull it all together. And this is kind of where, like I say, it takes a little bit of time, but and they don't all have to look exactly like mine. There's all kinds of different ways that you can put together a sponsorship package, but the main elements that you want to have, you want to make sure that it looks professional. I usually have like a cover sheet on mine and maybe a little introduction or paragraph about what the event or what they're sponsoring, and then the levels. I always make sure I have my contact information at the bottom so they can get in touch with me pretty easily. So yeah, so that's kind of the basics of kind of, you know, sponsorship and some of the important things that you need to understand kind of when you're getting into that world, and kind of, you know, how you would go about starting to get ready to go out and solicit sponsors and build a sponsorship package and all those kinds of things. Now, I do want to say, you know, like I say, with the sponsorship package, sometimes, you know, you have to think that all these business, chances are whoever you're going to go and ask or solicit, they're being asked by probably 20 other people that week, right? And especially in Fredericton, I mean, it's not a huge city, and we are fairly limited on maybe on who we can go after for those types of things. So you just have to be aware of that, and like, don't take it personally if you have a no. And honestly, sure, it's great and wonderful to have all those little perks and benefits that you can offer a sponsorship in those packages, but honestly, 9 times out of 10, they don't really care about that. They really don't. Even though you're going to do that, you're going to honor all of those things because that's what you said you would do. But that's not often, 9 times out of 10, that is not their main reason for getting involved or for, you know, giving a sponsorship or some cash to your organization. It's not because they got an ad in your season guide or it's because they got their logo on a sign. It's because their organization or, you know, that is an area of the community that they want to support, or that they are doing it just to be involved in their community. And you know what? And that's fine. But this is just kind of, you know, this is the way that the world of sponsorship works. So we do those things. But like I say, don't be offended if somebody says to you, well, I don't care about that stuff. You know, you can still do it, but that's, you know, a lot of times that's kind of what happens. So, or they won't take advantage of a lot of their sponsorship benefits. And, you know, and that's fine too. That's their choice. But it's there. You've put it out there, and then you just, you know, let them do with it what they will. All right. Well, we're doing pretty good. We're good on time. So that's all I kind of have for today, guys. So does anybody have any questions that we didn't, you know, like I say, we didn't cover? Don't be shy. I'm happy to answer your questions. Yeah, sure, no problem. If you want to see a sponsorship sheet, no problem. Like I say, you can get them on my website, but you can also email me. My email is just Christina, CHRISTINA, @theplayhouse.ca. Or give me a call or whatever. Like I say, you can grab all that information right off the website. Yeah, give me a call or shoot me an email, and I'd be happy to send it along or answer any questions that you might have if we didn't cover it here today. Anybody else have any other questions? No problem. You're welcome. I was glad it seemed to go fairly well. Like I said, it's the very first time I've ever done one of these, so I was glad I was able to come in and share some of the information I've kind of learned over the years with you guys. So thank you all so much, and I think if there's no other questions, I'll hand it over to Tanya.
Thank you, Christina. And as an appreciation for your time and your expertise, the Chamber will be making a donation in your name to our scholarship fund. I would also once again like to thank and acknowledge the University of Fredericton for sponsoring our Lunch and Learn webinar series. If you would like to watch this webinar again, or if you would like to pass it along to any of your coworkers who might be interested, it will be posted on the Chamber's website and our YouTube channel within the next week or so. Thank you, and have a great day, everyone. Stay dry out there. Hopefully it doesn't start raining again. Thanks.